here. Thank you everyone for staying back. Good afternoon. At the outset, I'd like to thank the organizers, Elets, Government of Karnataka, Department of ITBT, for organizing this World AI Summit and bringing us together for an important conversation. My name is Aditya Kaushik. I'm the Senior Director at the US-India Business Council, which is part of the US Chamber of Commerce. We serve as a trusted platform where we bring together policymakers and industry and innovators to align on policy priorities and to resolve challenges and unlock opportunities across sectors in the India-US corridor. We've had the privilege of convening some very critical conversations of our times, especially around emerging technology and especially around artificial intelligence, like, for example, the Initiative on Critical Emerging Tech, which is now called as TRUST, and few other bilateral and multilateral initiatives. Setting the agenda, what we've learned is that setting the agenda on AI is not just about technology or platform itself. It is also about the policy, the infrastructure, the partnerships. It's about building the entire ecosystem. So this brings us to today's conversation, which is about what will it take to scale AI, to build a scalable AI future in India. India is in a very unique position from this perspective because we've had an incredible journey. The digital journey that we've had in the last decade has been quite spectacular, something that no other country has done. With the mass adoption of digital public infrastructure, we are in a unique position to set the global agenda and define practical approaches to build a scalable AI future. And scaling AI goes far beyond algorithms, goes far beyond models. It requires strong foundations, responsible inclusive development and deployment, and enhanced enterprise competitiveness and deeper partnerships between public and private players. So over the course of this session, we'd like to sort of unpack these themes across these different pillars. With that, I'd like to welcome all our distinguished panelists, and we look forward to diving into this timely, critical conversation. I'd like to invite our panelists to give their brief opening remarks to discuss about who they are, what their roles are, and what their experience has been, especially from the perspective of what we plan to discuss in the course of this panel. So may I request each of the panelists to speak very briefly about their roles and experiences. I'll hand it over to Jishnu.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I am Jishnu. I work with the law firm Trilegal. And as my role as a legal advisor to technology companies, I have been at the forefront of AI innovations and regulations surrounding AI, and doing a lot of work with companies to frame the legal policy and in India as far as AI is concerned, and happy to share my thoughts with the panel. And hopefully this will be a great discussion. Thank you.
So I'm Pranav. I have been working in this space for last 20 years. So I've seen the full spectrum from, the core optimization to machine learning to AI to what we call as a Gen AI in the future. I have experience in working for one of the largest e-commerce company in India, and also currently very actively working in the healthcare sector for India and leveraging some of these technologies. So I will share my perspective on the technology, how consumer behavior changes, how industry market changes, and the challenges around that.
My name is Dr. Kushal Pathak. I'm Joint Secretary in Rajya Sabha Secretariat. I have an experience of 25 years of working in the government, and right now my current assignment is about making the parliament paperless and introduction of artificial intelligence within the parliament, and also to ensure that we are able to connect globally with other parliament. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Syona Sarma. I run hardware engineering for Cloudflare. For those of you who are not familiar with Cloudflare, our mission is to help build a safer, better internet. About 20% of the internet traffic sits behind Cloudflare, and we provide services around cybersecurity, AI, and we're essentially a cloud computing company. I'm really happy to be here. I'm originally a Bangalorean. I've been in the US for about 15 years. and excited to chat about the infrastructure at scale. We have a presence in over 330 cities with our edge network, and we're expanding significantly in India from a network perspective, but also building an innovation hub and hiring up to 200 people in the next couple of years. So really excited to be here and chat more about AI and infrastructure.
Hi everyone, I'm Ravindra Yadav. I work with Meesho AI team. I look after all things AI, right from ranking, personalization, to inventory optimization, route optimization, fraud detection. So largely all things AI there in e-commerce. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's dive straight into the first theme that we'd like to discuss, possibly the foundational theme to scale AI, which is infrastructure that's required. Perhaps I can start the session with my first question to Syona. Syona, scaling AI needs more than algorithms. What does strong digital foundation mean from an infrastructure perspective, and what is needed to enable AI transformation at scale?
Yeah, I think there's a misconception that AI involves 10 gigawatts of training clusters with miles of data centers. It can actually mean something completely different from an inference perspective, which is actually becoming a larger portion of the market today. And what do you need to build a good inference solution? There are two big things. One is a high-performing, low-latency edge network, and that's how we've chosen to do it at Cloudflare. We're not getting into the training space and competing with the large clouds. Instead, we have a distributed edge network where the eyeball latency to the customer is optimized, and that's working great for us. So something to keep in mind from a infrastructure perspective is hardware can be a competitive advantage depending on the market segment that you choose to target. The other thing is security, whether it means access controls, securing the data itself through confidential compute platforms, or a zero trust platform, which is the whole concept of which is never trust, always verify. We'll make sure that with the sovereign LLMs and sensitive public data that we now need to build these foundational models, we have a path forward. And I think infrastructure at scale and the challenges with that will determine where the AI models go going forward.
Thank you, Syona. The next question, I'd like to direct this to Dr. Pathak. Dr. Pathak, in your view, what foundational infrastructure is most critical to enable AI transformation at scale and to ensure that it reaches the last mile? You know, as I mentioned in my opening remarks about India's mass adoption of digital public infrastructure, what lessons can we draw from that experience of a decade of deployment of DPIs across the country? Where did we fall short? What have we done right? And how can these insights shape the AI journey for India?
First of all, let me put a small disclaimer that I am not the spokesperson for the government here. All my reflections today are my personal views and whatever I have learned within the government. Coming to the very important question to start with, and I think all of us who are sitting here should understand and must have seen the journey, what the India and the government has played part into it. Now, the transformational journey, what India has seen is not about, initially I remember when we started our career in the civil service, we used to develop applications, we used to develop softwares. So we used to have partnership with the people, with the vendors, with the industry on the development of an application. Now, if you see from the last 5-7 years, the shift of the government has gone from development of an application to development of a platforms. Now, you see, when the UPI started or when the Aadhaar started, it was sort of an application to start with when people didn't understand what will be the real use of it, but it has grown to develop as a platform. So now the role of the government really has taken shape, and all the ministries are doing the same. What they are doing is they are building the rails and the industry builds the train. So in that scenario, the government plays a very crucial part, and there's a major shift in what the government is going ahead with. That's number one when we start. Now, based upon this compute power, the government expectation from the industry has also changed. The government expected an application development. Now, procurement has become a policy. It is not a purchase. Now, every time we are looking for, when you are having an interaction with the industry, now we are looking for a deep partnership. We are looking for something which generates a trust between the industry and the government so that we can take it forward. Thirdly, what I have seen as the infrastructure is concerned, and especially AI growth trajectory which has recently taken up, is that number one, we are focusing on citizen-centric AI. There is no commercial aspect to it. Now, when I say citizen-centric, the first thing which should come to all of us is taking it to districts, taking it to dialects. Now, when district to dialects is covered as part of infrastructure, that really makes sense for the whole nation itself. Now, if you see, when we are covering citizen applications, now these citizen applications are purely non-commercial. For example, many of us have developed the initial avatar of AI as chatbots. Still, it is very prevalent nowadays. But the government or the citizen, when they interact with the chatbots, they discard it in due course of time. They want humans behind it. So the chatbot, in terms of the eyes of the citizen, has lived its life. They want real human to talk to them. Therefore, the mandate, what the infrastructure perspective is concerned, has moved from pure applications to a platform. Second important thing is about building a trust, building a secure AI. When I say secure AI, it is generally not considered cyber secure AI, but security in terms of how much sovereign it is. Does it talk the language which I talk? Is it an English AI or the Bharat AI? Is what the real debate today is all about. And all of you who are sitting here and the debate, what we are doing right now, should also focus upon sovereignty. Second important thing in the government, you see, when I talk to my set of people, let us use AI. So the first thing the employees ask me, what is the full form of AI? So I said, AI stands for artificial. They said, artificial? Can the government be artificial? The government need to be real. Therefore, the perspective for the government employees is that AI can only be accepted if it is real. And how the reality can be ensured? The reality can be ensured once you have explainable AI. Any decision, let's consider a judge making a decision. Can he make a decision without referring to a law? Same thing is with the AI. So the government now, or the government ministries, or we and the government is expecting, as an infrastructure perspective, that whenever AI comes, it comes with explainable AI. And the third important part, what I have seen, apart from citizen-centric AI and then secure AI, is scalable AI. Now, every time we are being approached by the industry, they are approaching us to do the pilots. The life of the pilots is over in India. We are talking of platforms. So once we talk of infrastructure, please remember, we are talking in terms of scalability. We are not talking in terms of, can I do a small pilot for you? No, let us do a bigger deal. So I think this is my take on how we are going to do, and I think my colleague also has said about distributed AI infrastructure, and this is what we want to take AI infrastructure up to district level. Every district, although it may be connected together, should have its own compute power. That's how the infrastructure take is.
Thank you, Dr. Pathak. I think we've had two really good sort of perspectives from the engineering side, from the governance side. Now let's get another perspective from the legal regulatory side of things. Jishnu, as India looks to scale AI, do you think we have the legal frameworks that enable digital foundations to expand seamlessly? What are some of the guardrails that are essential to keep deployment safe without choking scalability?
So, from a legal point of view, what becomes important with respect to AI is that we are processing large data sets, correct? And this involves movement of data sets across borders sometimes, and also within entities in India. So what is important to realize is that the Indian legal framework needs to sort of recognize this large-scale data processing, and sometimes the fact that large-scale data that you process for LLM training will also involve personal data sets as well. So currently, as you might be aware, that there is no umbrella legislation for governance of AI in India. There are some sectoral directives and directions that have come out from the sectoral regulators such as RBI, SEBI, etc. But we do have a data law in place, which mostly talks about personal data. However, for training of AI models, you would need more than what is currently provided under the legal framework that we have in the country. So what we need is a specific exemption for training of using data for training AI models, right? And that's probably one thing that's most important in order to scale AI development in India. And the other point that I would like to talk about is in terms of the infrastructure itself, right? So scalable AI depends generally on data centers, right? And the connectivity between data centers also assumes importance. Currently, the telecom service providers that provide these connectivity between data centers, I often hear from my clients that those have to scale up and needs to be modernized. And cloud service providers and data centers should be able to connect between their own data centers without getting these services specifically from telecom service provider. That's another important, which will make this more cost effective for them and also help scale AI in India. I think these are the 2 points that I had with respect to ensuring a sustainable, scaled up model for AI development in India.
Thank you, Jishnu. I think, as the 3 panelists summed up very well, scale without solid infrastructure, without solid governance, without solid legal framework isn't transformation, it's risk, right? So now with that, let's move into the second theme of the discussion, a thread that I'd like to sort of extract from what Dr. Pathak initially spoke about in terms of pilot projects are an end now in the country. The second theme is on responsible and inclusive AI development. What might be manageable risks in pilot stages can become really significant when AI is deployed at scale. So in this discussion, we would want to sort of figure out how operationalizing these AI principles that was brought up in the previous theme on explainability, on bias, on transparency, etc. How do you operationalize these principles, putting guardrails in place to ensure AI is deployed responsibly and inclusively? So I'd like to bring in Pranav. Pranav, you've been the head of product and technology at leading e-commerce platform. How do you ensure that AI-driven products are truly responsible and inclusive, rather than simply being optimized for engagement or revenue?
Yeah, thanks. Again, these are my personal views, but I would like to, before that answer, give some context, right? We talk about data, we talk about the challenges with AI, right? What does it mean? So let me give a very simple example. If you go to a doctor for a cough or a headache, he will give one medicine in India, right? And if you go for the same symptoms in the Western world, he will give one salt, right? Now, what do I mean by that? In India, you get a medicine with more than one salt, right? It is mixed. And why is it done? We approximate, because our diagnosis is not evidence-based, right? So we approximate ki, if you have a headache, there can be 3 reasons. You take this medicine, one of them will be cracked and you will be okay, right? But there is an impact of that multi-salt on your body, right? And I'm not going beyond that. The point I'm trying to make, that approximation has its own consequences, right? And AI is an approximation, right? As sir mentioned, what is artificial? So this is artificial, this is not real, right? Because you have not, pinpointed the problem. You are doing some probability, some approximation. So that is one important aspect when we think about AI and implementing it in a particular domain, you have to think about. The second point about, we talk a lot about data and AI and so on. In India, you do one transaction on credit card, you will get an immediate call from different company that, sir, buy another credit card, right? Your PAN card, Aadhaar card, all data is available, right? So what is so much fuss about this data and AI security? So let me give you another challenge, right? Some of them you may disagree, but that's okay, right? See, as a country, we have to walk a lot in terms of what is rational decision making, right? There is a, huge population which has not gone through a particular kind of education or exposure to that kind of education and so on. And thus they don't know what is that data-based, data-backed decision making, what is suggestion, what is opinion, what is fact, right? This is the problem with the country. At least I'm talking about India. This problem might be there all over the world, right? And again, without going into any political stances, right? You read the history, you draw your conclusion, right? The problem is that if you expose your data, say for example, you have given all your shopping history to Amazon, Flipkart, Google, they know everything about you, right? AI will not do something very different or learn anything very different. But if a system start influencing your thinking in a particular way, that is the challenge, right? It is, so there is a problem of someone stealing your data and doing bank fraud, and there is a problem of someone shaping your thinking, right, and directing. So that is the second. So this is the meaning of, data being leaked to the AI and the impact of that. So that one has to be very careful. Now coming back to very simple example, what simple things companies are doing, and not everyone is fair, by the way, right? That can you be fair? What do I mean by that? In a particular marketplace, you are not differentiating your sellers, whether he is a big, small, coming from a smaller town, has done a lesser sell. You are giving a fair chance for everyone to win, right? Using this algorithm, right? That is one important aspect. The second important aspect, at least you are transparent to the customer that why are you recommending certain things? Because you have shown this behavior on the platform, or we found that you slot to a particular segment of the cohort, and that cohort is doing something like this, and thus we are recommending you something like this, and so on, right? So this is a very basic example of, how can you make things fair, and transparent, right? So I will stop here. I will come to the other questions and share more, nuances of these problems.
Thank you, Pranav. I think it's a nice segue to Ravindra. Ravindra, from a data science perspective, how do you embed transparency, consent, safety, etc. in AI processes in practice? Or are these principles at risk of becoming just an aspirational label when you're competing with scale and efficiency?
So Pranav covered a lot of ground on that, like the fairness or transparency, inclusivity angle, right? So maybe I'll talk about some of the approaches which AI systems are taking to make sure that this does not remain aspirational, right? And so when we talk about fairness, it's not just about uh, uh, giving exposure or visibility to one kind of uh, sellers in a marketplace. It's also about sellers have a journey. It's like every seller would start on day 1 to day 10 to day 100, right? And they would have a different kind of profile. So are your systems able to recognize and give them right amount of exposure and visibility, right? So that's one. And typically the AI systems are making sure they are debiasing their learning so that these kind of journeys are represented in a fair way, right? When it comes to uh, like um, the other aspect was uh, transparency, right? And within transparency, there are multiple things. When you try to be fair and try to give right amount of exposure to different facets, different personalities, different personas, there are chances that you'd end up leaking misleading or harmful content as well, right? So these AI systems need to cover that ground as well and make sure that whatever is being surfaced to the users in the marketplace ecosystem is guarded well. So the governance angle comes into it, right? The third aspect was around inclusivity, right? So for inclusivity to be there, I think the way AI models are right now being trained is they try to make sure that they get representative data of all sorts of from the population, right? And that they do by making sure that they have covered language, they have covered region, they have covered all sort of demography, and they make sure that the training is happening with right representation from each of these sections, right? So that's how these aspects are being taken care of when we are building AI systems, and we are not just aspiring to do this, we are actually doing this.
Thanks, Ravindra. Jishnu, from a current legal frameworks, you touched upon it while discussing the previous theme. You spoke about the DPDP rules, the data privacy rules. We also have the IT Act. We have some guidelines around deepfakes. But with AI adoption accelerating so rapidly, what are some of the rules or what are some of the policies that are required urgently to make AI deployment both safe and scalable?
Yeah, so large-scale deployment of AI models is obviously fraught with risks, as we have all found out from fake news to different sort of harms that we have seen. So, and a lot has been discussed about responsible AI, how we develop and deploy AI responsibly. And there are certain global best practices being developed and the thought processes around the world regarding what at an algorithmic level, and also at a when you're deploying your application level, what are the how can you neutralize the effects? Because an AI system is a probabilistic system, it's not a deterministic system. So when you enter a specific request to an AI to generate certain kind of content, right? There's no definite answer in what it will generate. You can't control that. But to the extent that developers can sort of figure out what are the ways or what are the processes that are going through in generating that content. So it's very important to map out the steps and the procedures internally as well, to understand that given this kind of content, there's a possibility that a harmful content might be generated. And once you test and deploy these specific applications, it's very important to go through that life cycle of analyzing and testing the results that's coming out of a particular AI model. So I would say in terms of transparency and ethics, we'll have to build in a rigorous practice of testing the models that we are deploying, and also sort of analyzing the effect that it might have with respect to the, is it violating any laws? Is it, because your product that you put out in the market has different implications, right? It can be from a consumer protection perspective that you had deployed a product that is giving wrong information to customers, right? That's never good for your product or the company. So under Consumer Protection Act, there's specific product liability related provisions that are in play which you can be implicated against. Also in terms of malafied content, there's obviously the intermediary guidelines, etc. So the Indian laws are there to control the harm that can happen through when you deploy AI and generate content using AI. So we need to also think about this from a sectoral perspective. The harms in different sectors would be different from each other. Like for example, e-commerce sector, there might be questions regarding product liability. On RBI side of things or SEBI side of things, there can be financial frauds, which might affect deployment of a particular model. So we need to be cognizant of, again, the life cycle of the development of AI and sort of think through those aspects to have a safe, transparent, and ethical AI solutions that we put out in the market.
Thanks, Jishnu. As AI scales, its true test lies in enterprise adoption. So this takes us to our third theme on enterprise value and competitiveness. Dr. Pathak, if I can bring you in here. We've seen the private sector build successful products on digital public infrastructure. How can government initiatives, or according to you, what are some of the initiatives that needs to be put together to enable enterprises to leverage AI at scale?
Before I reply to the important question, first of all, I would like to thank who has spared the lunch and are still sitting, or those who have already taken the lunch and still sitting. Both ways. Secondly, I would also put a remark on what Pranav said about, multiple salt making a treatment. I, being an educated medical doctor, I would like to say that while I was working in a hospital, I would like to give you a site example that maybe more than a salt which works. A patient came to me and, with a jaundice, and I had forgotten because I was preparing for the civil service. So I told the patient that you come tomorrow, I will go and study and come back. The patient did come back the next day. I don't know why the patient came back. I prescribed a weak medicine and they didn't turn up after that. So I was like really hoping my first patient, jaundice, I would treat that patient, but the patient didn't turn up. After a month's time, I saw his wife coming up. She touched my feet and I said, "How's your husband?" He said, "Theek ho gao." I said, "Theek ho gao? Dawai to aapne li nahi, hafte bhar ki li." Sahab, uka aap, I don't know whether you all guys are able to understand these dialects. He said, "Uka aap ka dikhan ke paas, hum ओझा के पास ले गए." And that ओझा told, किसके पास ले गए थे सवेरे? तो हमने बता दिया कि नए डॉक्टर आए, डॉक्टर पाठक, ऊ का पास ले गए. तो ओझा हमको बोले, आई होप यू आर एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड. तो वो बताएं कि वो ओझा हमको बोले कि ये नए डॉक्टर को दिखान से ही का भूत उतर गए. So it may be more than a salt which treats, right? So coming back to an important topic which you just raised about what has been our learning in terms of how to operationalize and how to go about it. I would just like to touch two small base because I think it is showing thumbs up. Is it thumbs up, right? I am reading it as thumbs up. It's reads times up, so I'm still reading it as thumbs up, right?
We do have another 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay. Yeah. After times up, you have thumbs up, right? So, anyway, what I personally think that in terms of AI to really take roots and what the learning the DPI has brought in is that the infra, the compute has to go local, real local. It just can't remain centrally or with the conglomerates or with the industry. It has to be deep rooted within the industry, within the districts. That's number one. Number two is about, India is all about dialects. If you can't speak the language the local person says, your AI is gonna fail. Third is to really make it as a scale. I think from the day first, it has to be an open AI format, APIs format. so that the rest of the ecosystem develop. I think DPI provided that infrastructure that, even the small scale industries, MSMEs, they are able to plug and play. So like SMEs, they should not feel left out. So I think that is how, what we call it as AI inclusiveness in India. And lastly, I will just touch base that in India, the most important thing is about capacity building, training, familiarizing people, the citizens around, or maybe customers around about the use and what are the bad deals about the AI. I think this is the basics that I would like to touch right now.
Thank you, Dr. Pathak. I think if I can bring in Ravindra, Dr. Pathak did talk about small businesses, MSMEs. So small businesses form the backbone of our economy. So with some of the AI tools that are being embedded into platforms, does it genuinely help the level playing field for small businesses, or do entities with more data, more capital, more resources continue to dominate?
Good question. I think uh, when we say we want to being fair to small and medium businesses, right? What we are talking about is giving a level playing field uh, to all sort of businesses, sellers from larger brands to long tail, right? And the way to do that is basically leverage a lot of AI to build automation, right? Like creating a fair marketplace where all kind of discoveries are enabled uh, from each and every nook and corner of the country. Whatever is getting built, it's also being available to all users in the ecosystem, right? So building a robust, automated, personalized marketplace, that's one. The second is enabling our sellers from big to small to have right amount of intelligence, visibility, via which they can take right actions, right? So how AI is helping? AI is basically enabling them to use co-pilots in terms of automated listing, getting right price recommendation, which would give them a signal on what price point to list a product in a particular geography and what kind of orders they would get, what sort of business uplift they would get. So these are the ways via which they are able to take the same kind of decisions which a typical brand, uh, a multinational conglomerate is taking a decision. Similar decisions these folks are also able to take, right? So this is how the AI ecosystem is trying to enable and create a fair field for SMEs also to thrive in the same ecosystem without having that kind of a enterprise budget.
Great points, Ravindra. Pranav, how are you leveraging AI to drive scalability across your ecosystem? While you onboard more users effectively, while simultaneously creating new business models and enhancing competitiveness.
Sure. I think before that, I want to extend what Dr. Pathak mentioned. I think one of the important part for India to scale the AI is fixing the energy. I mean, we are not energy surplus country, right? And what does this mean? And maybe this is the challenge for all of us, is to figure out what is that low energy consuming technology which we can scale, right? Of course, there is a hope down the line that we catch up on our energy, and there are technologies like quantum and so on which are non-silicon based and much faster, and maybe there is a hybrid somewhere in between. But that is one very, very important problem statement for us to scale AI from infrastructure perspective. Coming back to the way we leverage, right? We leverage in three buckets largely. The bucket number one is that how can we improve the consumer experience? So even the person is a person in a particular village, Zorhat or whatever, Ambikapur or somewhere, in whatever their dialect, they can access the shopping easily, right? Which is their language. जो भी वो साड़ी को साड़ी बोलते हैं, कुछ और बोलते हैं, दुपट्टा बोलते हैं, जो भी बोलते हैं, कुर्ती बोलते हैं, ठीक है, जो भी वो सामान को बोलते हैं, यू शुड बी एबल टू फाइंड आउट एंड सर्च, एंड दैट्स अ वेरी कॉम्प्लेक्स प्रॉब्लम बिकॉज हर जगह हर चीज़ डिफरेंट बोली जाती है. So that is, I think, one important theme that, you know, how do you enable this consumer experience. Second important piece is ki, and again, very non-political thing and non-competitor thing also. India में, and we are also accountable for that, हमने pricing को इतना complex कर दिया. If you look at the final pricing, product pricing, discount 1, discount 2, coupon discount, platform fees, packaging fees, ठीक है, फिर GST charge, this charge, and so on. No one can understand why I am paying so much. So making things simple and explainable, कि भाई मेरे को कितने का मिलेगा finally, ठीक है, and then you have, you know, you buy from SDFC card, Axis card, this discount, मतलब you have to be really, really smart enough. And we are teaching maths to the whole India, by the way, by doing this, right? So how do you make it accessible to a person sitting in Zorhat or Churu or whatever city is one very important problem statement. I think the second part which you know, colleague from Meesho covered is that how do you empower the sellers, the small sellers, right? And you imagine that they would have uploaded millions and millions of images. I'm giving just one example, right? Ensuring that their catalog quality is equally good as Apple's catalog qualities or seller from Apple's catalog quality, right? So how do you enable those tools so that their quality of listing is very, very good? There are no pricing error. Imagine that the product is 1,000 rupees and by mistake he puts it 100 rupees. What kind of losses he will make, right, in this sale kind of season. So ensuring that he gets those signals and alerts that, hey, you are in this category and doing something wrong is also very, very important aspect that, you know, how do you ensure that seller is protected and he is equally competent. Third thing is about productivity across the system, whether it is the logistics, whether it is the developers' productivity, you know, how can we leverage that, you know, to use AI. So we were discussing offline that, you know, how can you optimize the logistics, right? Technically, yes, it is a consumer platform. You don't care about what happens to the infrastructure. You choke, you know, your airport, your lot of shipping lines and so on by this kind of sales. So how do you ensure, in fact, your payment infrastructure also, right? So how do you intelligently distribute the traffic and loads across this is also a very important problem to be solved for. So I think these are the three important areas where.
Thank you, Pranav. In the interest of time, we'll move to our final theme, and which has been brought up in all the other previous themes. This is on collaboration, on partnerships, and the true impact, the true scalability, transformation comes when government, industry, startups, innovators all work together to drive this. Syona, if I could bring you in here, you know, global infrastructure players hold enormous AI capabilities, but local enterprises hold context. How can collaboration go beyond typical service relationships to create genuine disruptive innovation?
Yeah, we hear these days about the $100 billion of investment with these large players, whether they're infrastructure or model developers. I think the unique solutions and the true value might be overshadowed with these giant announcements. And the innovation in terms of the startups in India, and I see two buckets of these, one related to the model development and to Dr. Pathak's point of Indian LLMs, which are dialect aware, culturally aware, local versus national, is a huge development. And there are plenty of these that we are trying to partner with. The other bucket that I see a vibrant ecosystem in is the custom silicon development. And if India can own its supply chain, right from the design all the way through manufacturing and process nodes, I think it's going to be a huge benefit in terms of building low cost, low power hardware to power these LLMs. We have a program at Cloudflare called the Launchpad, where we partner with VCs and startups to help fund, mentor, and support these founders and builders in order to bring their ideas to fruition. I think this is a key component in encouraging the right kind of ideas to foster the talent.
Thanks, Syona. Dr. Pathak, final question to you. We have the AI Impact Summit coming up next year in February. How does the government? How do you think that we should use it to drive actionable collaboration between startups, enterprises, and academia here?
Yeah, I think that event is really a milestone in terms of India AI growth strategy. I think two things I can think of offhand, because I think the strategy must have already been built. We must create sectoral specific AI, themes there. So health can be one sector, the agriculture can be next one. Second, I think the summit can have dialects, accessibility, and language to be one of the most prominent factor which should be taken care. And also, I think on the fly during the event itself, we can ask them to build a model and showcase during the event. I think these three, off the hand, I can tell you right now.
Thank you, Dr. Pathak. I don't think we have time to take questions from the audience, but I'd like to sort of close out this panel discussion with a round of rapid fire questions. Syona, what do you think is the biggest infrastructure gap that India must fix for AI to scale up?
I think it's the network resiliency, whether it's fiber optics or submarine cables, and the understanding that durability of data is critical. Customers or clients will not forgive you if you lose their data. They might be okay with lower performance. So making sure you think through replication and storing these stateful data points is critical.
Excellent. Dr. Pathak, should we allow LLMs to take shape on its own, or should we push for sovereign AI?
See, I think as of now, our focus should be and have to be on sovereign AI. Nothing beats to the sovereign AI. Because AI is such a fluid environment, I guess, having sovereign AI as a core layer is a must. And then slowly build a trust, security, a decentralization by using various other LLMs to supplement and augment wherever necessary.
Ravindra, one consumer trend that AI helped unlock?
I don't know whether it helped or not, but I've observed one thing where people are increasingly now buying from quick commerce. They don't go for grocery shopping, they buy it whenever they need it. Similarly, like scrolling through Reels, TikTok, I think people are now looking for one click gratification, right? So basically, there is this thriving zero patience economy that is there now. This is one trend I've seen.
That's a good point. Pranav, the most exciting AI use case that you think you want to deploy sometime soon?
Yeah, so my answer is again little bit two examples and one then I will precise. See, we have to look at how internet happened, right? There are multiple things happened during that time, so I will take the inference. One important thing which changed when internet came is the user interface, right? You started seeing apps, good websites and so on. Now, how will that happen in AI era? I think more than the experience, the trust on that will play a very, very important role. The second thing which happened during the internet era is that social, the cultural piece, right? Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all those kind of things came, right? I think something new will evolve with AI in this, our culture and the way we connect with each other. Third important piece before I give the answer, I think only AI will not play the role in the trend. The interesting piece is that the convergence is happening. So you can see that a lot of things are happening on AR, VR, a lot of things are happening on IoT and then AI. So I think maybe 3-4 technologies will come together and change the experience. I believe voice will play a very, very important role, at least in the country like India, where people are still learning to write and understand. And I will again not make a very political statement, but our whatever PISA test score is very, very low. So expecting people to write and understand is a very long journey for us. So voice will play a dialectical conversation will play a very, very important role.
Good point. Jishnu, final word to you. One global legal precedent that India should definitely avoid copying.
So there's a gradual movement towards having omnibus AI legislation across countries. But I think what India should focus on is cater to the specific requirements of their sectors and its own people. So I think the sectoral approach that we are currently moving towards, rather than having an omnibus legislation that's there in several other countries, makes a lot of sense. And that also sort of helps our regulators who have specific expertise in their own domain put out rules or frameworks which help govern products and basically set out the governance framework in that specific sector.
Thank you. So this comes to the close of our conversation today. I'd like to thank all our panelists for sharing such thoughtful and rich perspectives and for being part of this important discussion. And I'd also like to thank the audience for staying back and for delaying your lunch. Thank you so much for listening to us, and we hope to continue this conversation in the future. Thank you.